are back, and we are joined by Matt Lieb, the host of the Bad Hasbara podcast, which I have been a part of. I joined for a really fun episode at one point, and also the husband of friend of the show, Francesca Fiorentini. I mean, I probably should have led with that as a, because
that's my first credit. That's my most important credit.
Cuck. And
I'm a simp, simp.
Or simp, either one.
Mm-hmm.
Your podcast is phenomenal. I mean, when I'm looking for a defense of Israel, I go to you.
Yeah, I want to thank you so much for having me on your show. Didn't know that I was signing up to be on the anti-Israel report, but I'm very excited for whatever kind of, pro-Hamas propaganda we're going to be talking about here.
Right.
Also, I see that Sam Seder isn't here. I guess you don't want to have too many Jews on one show. Is that what's going on?
Kind of. I said, no two Jews. Only one Jew.
Yeah, you can only do one Jew at a time here at the minority deport. That's what I'm calling it.
Yep. Well, I think it's called racial quotas. Okay.
That's right.
So we obviously adhere to racial quotas. So how's the Zionist project going, Matt? I mean, kind of
great.
Seems like stuff's falling apart a little bit, but
no, that's you're watching the wrong news, obviously, and you're reading the wrong human rights reports. So if you read the correct ones, then you'll find out that actually everything's going pretty great. Everyone's happy. I don't know if you ever check out the Israel Twitter feed, the official Twitter feed of Israel. But on a regular basis, they like to do like a listing of like some website does the happiest countries, and Israel is always in the top 5. So, I mean, if that's not proof, what else is proof that Israel is happy?
Well, I that's all I care about is Israel being happy, obviously. But so. People can be happy for different reasons. Like people who are on, say, LSD can be happy, but does it mean they're in reality?
I mean, listen, the people can be on heroin and be happy. I was on heroin for a long time, and I was super happy.
Yeah.
And then, it got a little too much, and eventually I sobered up. And then October 7th happens, and I sobered up again. But this time, pro-Israel. So Zionism is like heroin in a way. You think you've kicked your habit after going to college, and then something happens in the news and you become a fascist.
Yeah. So, all right. All kidding aside, I'm abandoning that now. Your show is basically in reaction to I don't know. We've talked about this a little bit, but some of the conversations that you've had with people in your life that have been a little bit frustrating. Well, what is Hasbara? Can you tell our audience what that even is? And what really prompted you to start your show?
So Hasbara is loosely like the Hebrew word for explaining. So to explain what's going on with Israel is basically what's implicit in that. It's a euphemism for propaganda, and it's a specifically Israeli propaganda. It is. I started doing the show because it was something I wanted to do for a long time. I actually wanted other people to do it, just a show in which, it kind of weekly or bi-weekly covers just the alternate reality that Zionists kind of live in. I wanted someone else to do it because I was like, that sounds like a lot of work, and I'd rather just listen to it. It sounds like fun. Someone should do that. And also there's not much of an audience for it. It's like me and, 5 other anti-Zionist Jews who would be actually listening. And then October 7th happened, and I just kind of watched a lot of people that I knew who were, if not self-described liberal Zionists, they were, liberal and also had a little bit of Zionism in them. And I just watched it flip to just kind of like full-on fascist mentality, you know, and
so what's that
yeah.
like? What are look? I'm not Jewish, so I don't have family members that have to have these conversations with. I have other
Sure.
people, but I think it's probably a little bit different for you, also growing up Jewish and like all
Well, I
of the
grew up
lessons.
secular.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So I didn't grow up religious at all. Being Jewish was an ethnic thing and a cultural thing, and Zionism was also very intrinsic to that because Zionism itself wasn't about being religiously Jewish. It was about kind of being like an ethnic safe haven for Jews. That was kind of the way it was pitched. So it was almost served as a replacement for being religiously Jewish. It was like, you know, at some point, we're all going to have to move there. When the Nazis come to power, that's where we got to go. And anyone who's against that idea clearly must be, you know, anti-Semitic or, you know, be a Nazi themselves. So it took a while for me to kind of slowly pull out of this idea that, you know, Israel exists for the purpose of me as someone who grew up in Culver City, Los Angeles, to one day move there as a safe haven, and that anything they do in order to ensure that someday I'll move there is justified, which is, yeah.
Yeah, like what were some of the most frustrating arguments that you encountered after October 7th in some of these personal conversations? Just off the top of your head.
Yeah, well, there's a lot.
Yeah.
The biggest one was talking to people who immediately turned into a baby after October 7th. And what I mean by that is like their brains went from like being, I think, like critical people, like they did a lot of critical thinking, to being completely helpless little wieners where they were just like, well, what's Israel supposed to do? Like, you know, they were attacked and now it's like there's nothing else they can do. And I always tell them, I'm like, well, there's certainly something between nothing and genocide, right? Like just right in between that. You can't justify anything that they do. And so it was like talking to people who decided that they were going to just like leave their brain at the door and just kind of again, you know, just go with whatever the Zionist crowd around them was going with. So, you know, they were repeating all the same slogans, all the same talking points, all the same kind of like bad faith questions. Like what would you do if you were the prime minister of Israel? Wouldn't you do the same thing? And I also found people doing like really dated Hasbara. Like I was talking to people, one person who will remain nameless, who is since October 7th now talks a lot about how pro-Israel they are when before they were seemingly a progressive.
Mm-hmm.
And he was like repeating talking points that, you know, only someone who had literally never read a single thing about Israel would say. And I know that's not him. Like he would say like, well, you know, Gaza's not occupied. You know, the settlements left in 2005, and then there was a Hamas coup, and they've been at war ever since. And I'm just like, I know you know that is not the actual narrative of what happened. Like, and I know you know what an occupation is beyond the fact that settlements left Gaza. So what are we actually doing here? And the answer is defending Israel at all costs.
Like, so Israel's clearly not a safe space for Jewish people. You know, like America is pretty safe for Jewish people.
Yeah, like most places in the West don't have, you know, like giant mass killings of Jews in the last, you know, however many decades. Not to say that that's not something that couldn't happen again. And of course, that's something that should be guarded against. But the idea that Israel is the one that's going to keep Jews safe is based on what? What have they done? Like that? Have they? No one's. An IDF soldier has never like been airdropped into like my high school to tell like the kids to stop like poking at my nose, you know? like what are
Right.
they what how are they keeping me safe? I don't understand. Like once you get past the idea that it is like just on its face ridiculous to think that Israel is a place that will protect Jews, like somehow a state is going to be a safe haven for Jews, and like once you get past that, you realize like, well, what is this whole narrative about at all? If it doesn't actually guard against anti-Semitism and it actually exports a lot of anti-Semitism, then what is actually the point of this project? It makes no sense.
It's almost like a utopian vision, I guess, that has. I'm trying not to overstep with it, but like, it's almost like a heaven-like perception of
I mean, like the way it's sold to us is that.
Yeah.
That's how it's sold. Is it's just like, you know, it's a land. It's like FUBU, but for the Jews. It's like for us, by us, you know. And when you go there, you do feel that. Like it's why the Birthright Trip is so effective, because you go there and you're just like, oh my God, just like it's a whole country made out of camp songs.
Yeah.
And so you're like, you're stoked because you've never seen, you know, anything quite like it. And the reason you haven't is because it's fake.
Right.
like it's not.
Did you go on Birthright?
I did.
Yeah. What was that experience like?
Magical.
Yeah.
It was a magical experience, magical time. You know, it was, for me, it was kind of radicalized me. Like I went there with a group of Jews that were like me, just like, you know, it was like secular, you know, half Jews, like people who were more Zionist than they were, I guess, like Jewish in a way. Like it was people who wanted to feel that connection. You know what I mean? And that's, I think, what they're really good at preying on is like this idea of wanting that kind of community, that kind of brotherhood. You know, we're all brothers here. We're all, you know, we all share the same story and all that. And when you go there, you quickly like realize that they're essentially selling you a timeshare for like someone else's house, you know. And it was wild. Like there was one instance in which it was very clear they were like trying to sell us stuff. It was like did you ever see The Interview, that movie with Seth Rogen where they go to North Korea?
Yes.
Okay. And you know, the way they sell North Korea and kind of like the Western news is like everything there is fake. You go to a grocery store and it's fake. And, you know, all the people pretend to be happy. It was kind of like that, but for real. Like we were at we were on the bus going up to like Haifa or something. And they had to stop off and get gas. And they were like, go in and, you know, buy some snacks at the gas station and, you know, talk to people. You know, ask them, you know, what it's like to live in Israel. And so I went in and I bought some candy, and at the front counter, I talked to the guy. I said, so what's it like living in Israel? And he goes, well, I'm a gay Palestinian Arab. And if I didn't live in Israel, if there was no Israel, I'd be dead, because, you know, Arabs hate gay people. And here I can be safe. So it's also, you know, like a land for gay people. And I was watching it, and I was like looking around like, this is the fakest shit I have ever seen. It was like so clearly a plant. It was
right.
It was so clearly, because they told us to go in there and start asking. There's one guy there and he speaks perfect English. And the first question being like, yeah, how do you like living in Israel? And then he just goes off on this very scripted thing about how how
Oh my
Isra-
God.
Israel is a safe haven for all of the gays of the world. And I was just like, it was so egregious that for a while I was like, that maybe it wasn't a plant, like, because I just couldn't, in my heart I was like, that would be so embarrassing if they actually like set that up. And as I kind of like came down from that trip, like emotionally in my head, I was like, that was the craziest thing I've ever seen. I've never experienced like that level of trying to trick you into believing into a right-wing political project.
Did your friends on the trip have to do that exercise too? Like, did they
Well,
go
I mean, I was with other people at the time.
How did they react?
I think we all just kind of were like, yeah, exactly. Like that was like, yeah, totally. That is what I've heard about Arabs and how they're bad and how this place is good. And, there wasn't like, we didn't debrief from that. And I remember just sitting there kind of just being like, yeah, that was real. That'd be weird if that wasn't real. That was like, it's when a lie is big enough, it's kind of like in the last 8 months, the amount of confident gaslighting where they are like, not only saying, we didn't bomb that hospital, but like also like, how dare you? Like, of course we didn't. Like, look at me. I would never. And you're just like, yeah, I believe them because they seem, I don't know, they just seem like me. They're like me. I also wouldn't bomb a hospital. And then a day later, they're like, well, we have to bomb hospitals.
Right.
Because there's terrorists holding hostages in there. And you're just like, but you said, and you cried. You said, and you cried, and you made me think. And so like, you want to believe people. And you want to, it's like, and that's kind of was the thing with that trip, was like the sincerity of it. Everyone was like just so sincere. We even went to one of the apartheid walls, and they were just kind of like, this is the reality that we live with. I know it's tragic. It sucks. It's such a fucking
Well,
bummer.
I spoke to a liberal Zionist that I'm close with who didn't even want to say the word apartheid. So, that's at least an improvement. But maybe when the physical wall's in front of you, you got to be like.
They didn't say apartheid. They said, I knew it was an apartheid wall. They're like, this is our
special
security
wall,
our white picket security fence, and and they were, but they do the thing where they're like, man, this is the sad reality. We have to do this because, as you know, they're demons, and I mean, that's like what's implied. And so it's like the way in which the sincerity of it and the kind of like appeal to your, not just like your own empathy and Western sentiments, but also like the fact that they look like you and they talk like you and they sound like you, maybe with a funny accent, but you're like, yeah, we're the same. It gets you to kind of like really drop your guard. And, I think especially when it comes to like doing Hasbara, it works because you want to believe someone who says and all the nice things and speaks, like not just rationally, but also empathetically about something. But it's an empathetic defense of atrocities. And in their way of communicating it, you start believing, well, maybe they're not atrocities. Maybe I just don't understand something. Maybe I'm too stupid to understand why sometimes it's okay to imprison 2.2 million people. Like maybe there's like a good reason for that. Because why would they be so adamant about it, sincere about it? Like they're not foaming at the mouth. They're like into yoga and shit.
It's the banality of evil. I mean, it really is, right?
Yeah.
And what I am curious about is, like, for liberal Zionism, there's this emotional quality that I don't fully understand, but it's almost as if calling the Israeli settler project a racist one is so, like, anathema. It's so far off from people who identify as liberal because of like the Holocaust and the atrocities that Jewish people have gone through, and because like the lessons that were learned were good in the sense of one of the most liberal voting blocks in this country are Jewish Americans, right?
Right.
And so there's like racism is bad, right? The conception of being, somebody who's enlightened as a liberal Jewish person in this country means I don't like racism,
Right.
but it's so it's so core to an identity that it becomes like this really like emotional heavy lift for them that they can't really grapple with, that I find to be like a psychological marvel, to be honest.
Yeah, it's kind of amazing. It's I didn't realize, I think, the depth of programming for some people. And I think like I actually have empathy for it because I can't claim to know what it's like to I mean, I guess for me, I just go like, fuck, maybe if I had like been to Hebrew school a bunch, I think, maybe it'd be different for me. Maybe but instead, because, my family had no religion growing up, like, I feel like maybe I just was not, I'm just not as committed to the idea the way everyone else seems to be. I don't know what it is. I can't quite explain it, other than the fact that like you are so, as a liberal, attached to your self-conception as I'm good. I do good thing. I recycle. I cut soda can holders so turtle and fish don't swim into it. I put black square on Instagram. Like I'm good. I am good. And then to have this like core belief questioned about like the right of Israel to defend itself. When that gets questioned, they're just like, no, that has to be good because I want them to do it, and I'm good. Anything I like is good. So everyone else must be bad because I have a commitment to, fighting racism, fighting sexism, fighting homophobia. And so I think like you really see how deep the egotism and narcissism goes within like American liberals. And
broadly, right.
Yeah, just broadly. And I feel like with a lot of liberals who aren't Zionists, who aren't definitely the ones who aren't Jewish, but ones who haven't been brought up with it, I think a lot of them, they will passively support, they're passive Zionists. They're like, well, I don't know, Biden, if Biden says, then good, because Biden good. But you see them in general, they have the same feelings when, someone tells them to check their privilege, and they're just like, oh, I didn't know that I could go full Nazi, but now I'm gonna. Like, it's very easy. They say like, scratch a liberal and a fascist bleeds. Yeah. And it's like, I've never seen a more clear example than the last 8 months. There's just fascists are bleeding everywhere. God damn.
Yeah. I'm also curious too. Have you now seen some silence? Because I feel like December, January-ish on, the liberal Zionists stopped posting for the most part.
Yeah.
I mean, we got the thank God for those hostages coming home, the 4 that were killed, that were rescued, which they could have been rescued via ceasefire, but they wanted to kill nearly 300 Palestinians in the process.
Yeah. Well, then you don't get to kill a bunch of people.
Right. I know. That would have sucked.
That would suck.
Yeah. It hurt my feelings.
Oh, yeah. Come on. Why would we do that when we could just kill them? Yeah. No, I've seen silence. I've definitely seen, people go from, posting a bunch, the first like 3 months to kind of like slowly tapering off, only to like pop up again whenever there's an article released that says like, Palestinian, Hamas commander says, I want my people to die. I'm bad. and they're like, see? and then they just go back into hiding. You know?
Yes, right.
Retreat into the shadows.
But do you think they're uncomfortable at all right now? I'm hoping.
I don't know, because they have stopped texting me back, Emma.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I would imagine so. The problem is, and this is why I still try to talk to, just interpersonally, like people I know who are liberal Zionists who supported this early on, vocally. I try to talk to them because I don't want them to do the thing that I think a lot of liberal Zionists will do, which is like section off into their own bubble. And then have their very nuanced take on why this is bad because killing people is bad, especially innocent people,
babies. Yeah.
But isn't it crazy how many anti-Semites are on college campuses? Like they get to live in their nuanced bubble. I experienced this when I was younger, back when Facebook was a thing, where before I felt comfortable talking in public to people about my thoughts about Israel, I only wanted to talk with other Jews about it, because it was the only place where I felt safe, that I was talking to people who didn't want Jews to die, like people I knew they weren't anti-Semites. I mean, and yes, Jews can be anti-Semites, of course, but it was like,
well, they don't understand this group. They, even if they are well-meaning,
yes.
And for the Palestinians, they don't understand what we've gone through, and
right.
They could never understand.
They never understand, and also I just it was just a deep paranoia about people when they talked about Israel. I was like, why do you care so much? Like, what's the big deal? Like, there's so many things going on. Like, look at, why don't you talk about whatever's happening in Africa? They never say anything when, how black on black crime, it's like that was like the feeling where they're just like, what, talk about anything else. So I would feel that. I would be like, I'm suspicious. And then it eventually, I just kind of came out of it, because I was just like, this feels like, everything feels like I'm guarding myself against this greater truth that's going to destroy kind of a pillar of my own ideology in a way, this idea of Israel as this beautiful thing that was created to help all Jews, and I just was so afraid of losing it that I only wanted to talk to other Jews about it, and I only wanted to stay in my own bubble. And my fear is that people are at that stage and they could easily revert backwards, because a bubble of people can be radicalizing in both directions. You don't know where it could go. So I try to I still try to talk to liberal Zionists in my life, and come at them with empathy and understanding, because I don't want them to just talk to each other, because they will stay supporting the status quo, and then they'll as a crumb to the Palestinian cause, they'll say, "But I hate Netanyahu."
Yeah, I know. He's crazy.
He's crazy.
Well, so my advice, your advice to me would probably not to be to try that, because I've tried to talk. And I don't think, as the most moral Gentile, as I call myself on your most moral podcast. No,
that's right.
Right. But as somebody who's not a part of that community, I think it's hard. I want to have those conversations.
I think you can still have them. I do not discourage conversations. I don't say, oh no, only Jews should talk. I actually think it's better for people to for anyone doesn't matter, race, religion, ethnicity, culture, whatever. Just if you have friends who and not online people, I'm not talking parasocial, you will never be able to convince someone online to take you seriously. But if you know somebody, call them, and it is okay to talk to them. And if they're obviously triggering you or fucking you up, then yeah, you don't have to have toxic people in your life. But I don't discourage people from doing it. So I wouldn't say, nah, don't do it. I'm just saying, like, that is going to be a roadblock always. Just the idea that, like, well, but are you secretly harboring anti-Semitic feelings? And it's really it's annoying because that paranoia is not. I think it's good for people in general to look out for anti-Semitism. But I also feel like it is this defense mechanism against the critical thinking when it comes to this specific issue. And this specific issue is not just like, oh, some weird little thing. It's like a genocide is happening. If you gotta actually start like critically thinking about this now. You can't just be a passive Zionist anymore. Like at this point, when someone just screams like, fuck Zionists, fuck Zionism, no Zionists allowed in this space. Like, you need to sit there for a second and go like, are they actually saying no Jews? Or are they talking about a specific far-right fascist political ideology? And once you realize that, then I think, at least I would hope, you could.
We're hoping.
Yeah, stop thinking everything's anti-Semitic. Yeah.
So we'll end here. We have this clip from 1980s apartheid South Africa, and there's so many parallels in terms of how these white South Africans are referring to black people in South Africa. And I'm just wondering if this brings up and evokes any memories from your Birthright Trip and some of the other conversations that you had.
Well, and if I could just jump in, like with the last conversation, I think the point of this is like to say, like, it's not to say to Zionists, it's not your fault as Jews. It's the fault as colonial occupiers, because what these Afrikaners say here, I think, well, we'll play it. It sounds strikingly familiar with how you rationalize, other stuff.
Know that if there is not the strength of will on the part of the Afrikaner to follow the course he's chosen and to do it to a certain extent ruthlessly, although I would say he will always try to justify it vis-a-vis certain moral principles. But if this is missing, I mean, we have lost. Then we must capitulate. Then we have no policy.
The Afrikaner is of European stock, our traditions are European, but we evolved a different set of traditions to suit our being an African people now. And we differ from the English in small respects, but we differ very greatly from the other peoples who inhabit this country.
Yes, I think that each man has been given his piece of country and the right to vote in his country, and that is fair. Because if you have to put, if we have to say one man, one vote in South Africa and just leave it open, then the white is not going to get a fair share, because he has contributed economically to making this country what it is today. And if you say tomorrow, one man, one vote, then he doesn't, there is no chance for him. So it's better that each person be given the chance to have his piece of country and decide how he wants to live and what he wants to do with his country there.
Beautiful. Yeah. I mean, it's the exact same fucking thing. It's like, I don't know how, like, down to the fact that they also have a silly accent. I'm like, what are we? How do you not? It is unbelievable. The parallels at this point. The only argument that Israel isn't apartheid is, well, no, because apartheid only applies to one thing ever in the history of the world.
Same with genocide. I mean, we heard that, who was saying it yesterday? That there's no gas chambers, so it can't be a genocide. I'm blanking on who it was, but that also means that every other genocide that wasn't the Holocaust is not one either. But.
Exactly. It's just like this insane semantics game where you can label something something a little bit more I don't know, like less charged. It's a way of doing euphemisms. You know, that's all this is. You look at that video and they're saying the exact same argument, which is on its face an anti-democratic argument. It's just like, well, no, you can't, let everybody vote, because then they'll
She said it there. The one person, one vote. We can't have that happen. And
Yes.
and that's what makes it so. The only democracy in the Middle East. That's what's so insane. That's
what I'm saying.
It's an inversion of it, and that's how deep the propaganda goes. When you're saying something is one thing, when it's actually the opposite thing, How do you penetrate that? Because it's just like you're living in the upside down world.
Yes, and it's like, one of the reasons why I wanted to start this podcast, because I was just like, there was a time at which this was such a fringe issue, or not fringe, but like something that, if you were a lefty, you cared about it. If you were Jewish or Palestinian, of course, it was an issue you knew about. But in general, I felt like the general public was just their default pro-Israel position, and they weren't exposed to this kind of like doublespeak and this kind of propaganda. And now, that it's everywhere, in the last 8 months on the mainstream media and mainstream news, I was like, I hope people know that this is ridiculous. I need to know that other people see these like Elon Levies and shit and go like, these guys are just like paid liars. They just go there and they like say Israel is the only democracy. and meanwhile, they're also advocating for the annihilation of a whole people who have no voting rights within the state that actually controls their air, land, and sea and economy and everything, every aspect of their lives, outside of what toilet they shit in. And they're not separating the drinking fountains in Gaza. They just control the water. So I'm like, come on, people need to. If they don't know, they need to know. So I was like, I'm gonna do a podcast about this until this all, until it all works itself out, which it will, I'm sure.
Yeah, totally. Well, I think you'll be in business for quite a while, because Elon Pape, we played a clip of him saying that he believes this is the beginning of the end of the Zionist project, but at the same time, it's going to be quite a bloody path forward. And so, not to be dark about it, but
great. That's great. Listen, before this podcast, I mostly just did TV rewatch podcasts. I have a show called Pod Yourself a Gun, which is a Sopranos rewatch podcast. And then it was a Pod Yourself The Wire podcast. And that's what I like. That's what I want to do. I don't want to do this.
Yep. Yeah.
This sucks. Every day something terrible happens, which is just watching a show from 20 years ago is way better for my mental health. But at this point I'm like, people gotta know.
People gotta know.
People gotta know. Anyways.
Well, by the way, it was George Latimer who said that thing about the gas chambers, the guy running against Jamal Bowman. So Matt,
the APAC guy. Okay, cool.
Yeah, you and Francesca will be in Chicago
That's right.
In a little while.
August 20th and 19th. 19th and 20th will be at Lincoln Lodge in Chicago. The 19th is a live Bituation Room / Bad Hasbara podcast. So we're teaming up for one super podcast. And then the 20th is a live stand-up show, me and Francesca, who is my wife.
My wife.
Yeah, so that'll be fun. If you guys want to go out to that, do it. Or you can just listen to Bad Hasbara wherever you get your podcasts, or you can watch it on YouTube. But
I mean, I was on a month or two ago. That was really a really fun time. So people can check it out.
Revealing.
Oh well, yeah, I did reveal some secrets.
Yeah, you dropped some knowledge and secrets. It's a fun podcast. You were fantastic on it, and we've had a lot of fun. We just had Mark Lamont Hill
on. Yeah,
and that was fun. It's on YouTube. and it's on podcast apps.
Right.
So you can check it out.
Check it out. We will put a link to Bad Hasbara and in the description wherever you folks are listening to or watching this. Matt, it's always a pleasure. Say
you.
hi to Francesca for me. So you guys are doing a stand-up comedy together in Chicago. Are you just leaving the baby in the house and just hoping she fends for herself?
Fuck.
Yeah.
Francesca, we have a child. No, we have her mother, Francesca's mother, is gonna be taking care of the baby, and as well as a friend of ours who is our babysitter, and yeah, we're just like, what if we were just not parents for like 2 fucking days? It's 2 days, no baby. We do stand up. We do live podcasts. We forget what our life has become, and so that's what we're gonna do. Listen, we love our child. We love our child, obviously, but sometimes you just
I don't know why you have to say it like that. It's just
well, because there's a big but. There's a caveat of like sometimes you just want to not be with them for a little bit.
Yeah,
you love them, but you hate them. You know what I mean?
I understand. I
love my kid. Anyways, it's gonna be fun. And Francesca and I, we're not performing. We're not a duo act. So one of us will be doing 45 or 35 minutes, and the other one will be doing 35 minutes. And we're gonna have some openers and stuff, and it's gonna be fun.
That's
awesome. The live podcast will be great. I'm gonna bring my Netanyahu soundboard.
Crazy Jews.
Did you hear that?
Yeah, I did.
Crazy Jews.
Yeah. Also, this.
I
want you to come.
You should get when he did that Dr. Phil interview where he said, "I assure you, Dr. Phil, we have more than fingernails." That's my next addition for your soundboard.
Yeah,
I've been collecting little sound bites, including that one, but my computer broke earlier this week, and
Can I swear? I'm sorry.
Yeah, you've been doing it the whole time.
I forgot.
I had one or like a few folders on my desktop that I didn't save, and it was like 6 or 7 sound drops I've been collecting until Sam finally gives me a soundboard. I'm so mad at myself.
Soundboards rule, dude. Check this out.
You're good.
You're good. Look at
I'm
that.
good.
Also, this one.
Tough neighborhood.
All right, that's my suggestion for you is I assure you, Dr. Phil, we have more than fingernails, okay?
Yeah. That'll be my next one, and then if you find any more, let me know, because the Netanyahu soundboard is a lot of fun.
I want you to come.
We used to have him saying the so-called progressives are now regressive.
Oh, bars. He got bars.
He really does have evil villain voice.
It's the most evil villain voice. It's just so, oh God, the way people...
It's like Jeremy Irons playing Scar. It was a little less cartoony.
Yeah. Prime Minister Scar is out here. Long live the king. You're just like, I trust that guy. He should do a war.
Yeah. He's crazy, but I support everything he does.
Yeah, well, what else can we do but support a literal madman?
The Scar administration has to come to an end. We need to get one of the hyenas in power.
Oh God, little Elon Levy hyena just there, trying to explain apartheid away.
All right, well, this was lovely. So check out Bad Hasbara. Check out the Chicago show on August 19th or the 20th. We'll put a link to that as well. Thanks so much, Matt. Always a pleasure.
Thank you so much. Love you guys.
Love you. Bye.
Hey, folks, don't forget to hit the subscribe button and check out our daily show. We do it every day at 12 p.m. Eastern for about 2.5 hours. We even take phone calls. You should check that out.